I got transferred, so we're moving next month. What? So I have to change schools? I blurted out my honest question to my parents. Then my mom, Emily, said bluntly, "It's just me, Georgie, and Sharon moving. We don't need a monster in this house." I was at a loss for words at the incredibly cruel thing to say, especially coming from my own mother. "It's embarrassing to have you around. Sharon, with her perfect body, is our only child." When my father's transfer was decided and the move was set, my parents, who found me a burden due to being born with only one arm, took only my sister Sharon and disappeared. A few months later, I was to be left in the care of my grandparents. "Well then, Dad, Mom, please take care of Rothy." "See ya, Rothy." My parents handed me over to my grandparents with a casual attitude as if they were going on a 3-day trip, even though we probably wouldn't have many chances to see each other from now on. After seeing off my father, mother, and Sharon, I burst into tears. Seeing me like that, my grandfather Sullivan said, "Don't worry. They'll be the ones regretting it." 8 years later, I would come to understand the meaning of his words. My name is Rothy. I'm 26 years old now. I've been living with my grandparents for the past 8 years. Today, we're having your favorite omuris, Rothy. My grandmother Olivia is a great cook, and her omuris is my absolute favorite. The fluffy, creamy eggs and the homemade demi-glace sauce are simply divine. Yay! Thanks, Grandma. It's delicious, I said with a beaming smile. My grandfather, who finished eating first, prodded me. "Rothy, would you play chess with me today? After I finish eating, okay? Just wait a bit." Grandma, who is kind and a great cook, and Grandpa, who loves chess. It's not like I'm living with my grandparents because my parents got divorced or died in a car accident or anything. Both of my parents are alive and well, living happily with my sister Sharon. There are a few reasons why I'm the only one living away from my family, but I think the biggest reason is because of my arm. I was born with a congenital disease that left me without a left arm. Since I've never had a left arm from birth, I personally haven't felt particularly inconvenienced. This is just normal for me. But even if I felt that way, the people around me reacted differently. In kindergarten, there were kids who would burst into tears upon seeing my single arm. In elementary school, my classmates would tease me relentlessly, saying things like, "EW, a monster with no arm is here," or, "That kid isn't normal. She's a freak." Because of that, I couldn't make any friends in kindergarten or elementary school. That's not to say I was overtly bullied, but everyone seemed to avoid me like the plague. By the time I got to middle school, people started to understand me to some extent, and I stopped getting teased for things like that. I even started making a few friends, albeit a small number. But I would still often hear my classmates' parents say things like, "That poor girl, having no arm." I'm not pitiful. This is just my unique trait. If it were now, I'd probably loudly proclaim that. But at the time, I had resigned myself to the fact that it couldn't be helped even if people said such things to me. However, even for someone like me, there was one person who I felt was my sole emotional support. That was my sister Sharon, who was 1 year older than me. Sharon was smart, kind, and fashionable. Every morning when I tried to put on my middle school uniform, I had trouble closing the buttons on my uniform shirt. It's difficult to get dressed with only one arm. At times like that, Sharon would say, "I'll close it for you." And she would help me put on my shirt. After school, Sharon would always walk home with me, and to me who only had one arm, she would proactively take care of me, saying things like, "I'll carry that bag for you." Or, "Here, it's cold so take this." and she would wrap a scarf around my neck. Among all that, I especially liked it when Sharon would tie my hair for me. "There, your hair looks so cute now. I tried putting it in a braid today." "Thank you. I'm so happy. Sharon, you're amazing. You're going to be a hairstylist in the future, aren't you?" As I looked in the mirror over and over with sparkling eyes, Sharon would give me a proud look. I was somewhat interested in fashion too, but for me who only had one arm, styling my hair was quite difficult, so I was always happy when Sharon would make it look cute for me. More than anything, I was happy that Sharon seemed to enjoy doing it. The two of us would watch YouTube videos of our favorite idols together, draw pictures, play house. I think we were close sisters. But my impression of our parents was a little different. My parents were the type of people who really cared about how others saw them. Ever since we were little, both Sharon and I were repeatedly told how girls should be. Dad would even unreasonably buy an expensive car because he wanted to be seen well, and Mom would dress herself in beautiful clothes. Our family wasn't particularly wealthy, but our parents who cared about others' perceptions would always try to put on airs, and at home they would complain about not having money. For parents like that, my existence may not have been a very happy one. Now I can even take a shower by myself, but back when I was in elementary school, I couldn't go in alone. So every day either Sharon or our parents would bathe me and wash my body and hair. When I bathed with Sharon, she would always talk a lot, so bath time was fun, but when I went in with our parents, they would say, "Okay, I'm washing your hair now." And they would roughly scrub my head. Sometimes their nails would dig in and hurt, or they would miss spots. They were just completely careless about it. When they finished washing my hair, they would toss me a bath towel and leave without a word. Also, at home we use drink packs that you can just pour and drink from even with one hand, or a water dispenser, but when we go out sometimes I drink from plastic bottles. At those times, I ask, "Dad, I want some water. Can you open the cap of this bottle for me?" But he clicks his tongue and then opens the cap and hands it to me. Every time I ask my parents for something, "What a pain!" they mutter angrily. I tried to think it couldn't be helped, but it was still sad. Even so, I didn't hate my parents. "Where should we go today? Sharon, what do you want to eat?" "I think I want pizza." Pizza would be easy for Rothi to eat too. On Sundays, the four of us would often go out to eat as a family. I'm indecisive, so when asked what I want to eat I hesitate and can't answer readily, so Dad, Mom and Sharon would always decide the place. I liked watching the three of them discuss what they wanted to eat and what they were in the mood for that day. I like eating delicious food out too, but more than that, I loved the time when the whole family would sit across from each other and eat together. One day, when we went out to eat as usual, I overheard the voices of a family sitting at the next table. "Hey Mom, why does that person only have one arm?" It was a scorching hot day, so I was wearing a short-sleeved shirt. Because of that, it was immediately obvious that I was missing an arm. The child seemed to find it utterly perplexing. They were speaking quite loudly, so we could hear every word. Then the child's mother began to explain. "Hush now, that person is sick." "What? It's scary that they're missing an arm. Why don't they have it? Everyone usually has two arms, right? Why is that?" "You shouldn't stare so much. That child isn't normal. That's why they're missing an arm," said the child's mother. It's a common occurrence for people seeing my arm for the first time to whisper about it like this. But am I not normal? While this is normal for me, I felt a little disheartened inside. Sharon, who had been listening, said to me gently, "Rothi, don't let it bother you. You're no different from anyone else. Look, Here's the extra cheesy pizza you love. Eat up. I had tried not to show my dejection on my face, but Sharon seemed to have noticed. However, in stark contrast to Sharon, our parents started saying, "How embarrassing. Rothy, when you go out, try to hide it better." That's right. We draw attention when you're with us. From now on, when you're with us, we'll have to change to a private room. That's just like my parents who care about appearances. Honestly, I'm not surprised by this reaction. But Sharon scolded. "Mom, Dad, how could you say that?" I was happy that Sharon scolded our parents on my behalf, but I didn't want Sharon and our parents to fight because of me, so I followed up with, "Sharon, it's okay. Thank you. But, Dad, Mom, I'm sorry. I'll be more careful next time. As long as you understand. Now hurry up and eat." Okay. I stuffed my face with pizza as if nothing had happened. Sharon had a dissatisfied expression, but I tried to convince both her and myself that I was fine. However, was it from this day onward? I stopped being invited along on family outings to restaurants. All right, shall we get going then? Rothy, you stay home and hold down the fort. No longer brought along on family restaurant outings, I was left to house sit. At first, Sharon didn't say anything, perhaps thinking I just happened not to be coming along, but as this continued every week. Hey Dad, Mom. Why has Rothy been staying home lately? Sharon asked our parents curiously. Our parents then said with slightly pained expressions, "You know how the family next to us at the restaurant the other day was making fun of her? That seemed to really hurt Rothy. Rothy's a girl at that sensitive age too. If Rothy doesn't want to go, we can't force her to come along, can we?" They lied. Still unsatisfied, Sharon said, "Then let's stop going out and order delivery to eat together at home. I have more fun when Rothy's around too." At those words, I felt my eyes start to well up a little. I realized just how truly kind my sister was. But our parents said, "Sharon, if we tell Rothy we're not going out of consideration for her, won't that make Rothy feel even worse?" That's right. Rothy says she doesn't want us to change how we normally act. Right, Rothy? Saying that, they pressured me with a sharp look. Sharon was standing behind Mom, so she didn't seem to see Mom's expression. I shrank back in fear at the demonic look on Mom's face. I mustn't go against my parents. I can't survive on my own. I have to endure it. I have to give the answer my parents want. Thinking that, I bit my lip hard and said, "That's right. I hated being made fun of the other day. People kept sneaking glances at me, and it was just too embarrassing. I feel more at ease watching TV at home, so don't worry about it, Sharon." I desperately forced a smile. Is that so? All right then. Sharon seemed to reluctantly accept it. And with that, my parents left the house with Sharon, looking satisfied. After the three of them left, I tried to open a bag of pasta that just needed to be heated up to eat, but even just opening the bag was difficult for me alone. Saddened by my inability to do even something like this, tears spilled out. This day seemed to have taught my parents that if they put pressure on me, I would obey without talking back, and they eventually stopped taking me along not only to restaurants but also shopping and on trips. Rothy's not going again? When Sharon would look at me sadly, I would gauge my parents' expressions. Yeah, sorry. And answer. When they went on trips, I was left with my grandparents more and more often. Grandpa is the president of an IT-related company. He always lets me use the computer, and Grandma makes delicious meals for me. They let me stay with them without wanting for anything. To me, that time was fun and refreshing. But, Mom, I'm sorry. No matter how much I try to convince Rothy, she says she doesn't want to go on the trip, so could you take care of her for these 3 days? Sorry for always troubling you. Sharon's not like this, but Rothy is going through a rebellious phase. We'll be imposing on you for 3 days, but please take care of her. I was scared of my parents who would always lie to my grandparents like they were breathing. But even so, I never denied my parents' lies. I see. It's no trouble at all for us. Just leave Rothy to us. Have a good time. Be careful out there. My grandparents would see my parents and Sharon off with a smile and welcome me warmly. With a hollow smile, I would wave to the 3 of them and say, "Have a good trip." This was always the routine before a family trip. One day, perhaps noticing my fake smile, "Rothy, are you really okay with not going?" Grandpa asked me. "Yeah, I don't need to go. I'd rather be with you and Grandma than go on a trip," I said, putting on a brave face. But this was also the truth. At first, I felt lonely being the only one who couldn't go on trips, but lately I've started to feel more at ease being with my kind grandparents than I do when I'm with my parents. Is that so? It brightens up our home and makes us happy when you come over, Rothy, so come anytime. And if anything is ever bothering you, you can always tell Grandma and me," he said to me. At that time, I didn't really want to be asked too deeply about my parents. I was afraid that if I was asked too deeply, all my emotions would come spilling out and I would want to escape from my current life. And even if I was asked deeply, I didn't know how I should answer. So I was grateful to be left alone. Looking back now, I think Grandpa, who sensed that I didn't want to be touched on the subject, was giving me advice to say anything so that I could always feel comfortable consulting him. Even after that, my parents continued to treat me coldly. When people came over to the house, they would say things like, "It's embarrassing to have you here, so don't come out of your room." And even on hot summer days, they ordered me to wear long sleeves when going out so that no one would notice my missing arm. To my parents, my existence was probably classified as something embarrassing and unsightly. Even so, I had Sharon. That's why I was somehow able to keep myself together. However, even Sharon, who was my one and only emotional support, was taken away from me by my parents. "Rothy, you're horrible. Enough already." One day, Sharon suddenly said something like that and stopped tying my hair for me. She also stopped dressing me in my shirt every morning and silently helped me only with the things I absolutely couldn't do on my own. Being treated coldly by Sharon is more painful than being treated coldly by my parents. If Sharon abandons me, I will lose my place in this house. Thinking that, I decided to ask Sharon. "Sharon, did I do something? I feel like you've been cold to me lately. Did I do something to make you mad?" "Don't you know? I know everything." Saying that, Sharon shut the door and went to the living room alone. I couldn't think of a single thing, and I had no idea what Sharon was angry about. Then my mom came to me. "Rothy, I heard you made Sharon angry?" "No. I don't know what I did." "Oh, stop pretending you don't know. Didn't you call her your little helper behind her back? Even though she was being so kind to you and your disability. Isn't that terrible?" While feeling disgusted by my mom's emphasis on the word disability. "What? What's that? I never said that." I denied it. I like Sharon. I'm grateful to her, and I would never say something like that. "I told Sharon you said that to your friends at school, and that I scolded you." Of course Sharon would be mad. I shuddered at the eerie look on my mom's face. Oh, so that's what it is, I realized. My parents must be feeding Sharon all sorts of lies to try to destroy my relationship with her. To Sharon, our parents are kind and important people. Sharon seems to believe the words of those two. From then on, no matter what I said to Sharon, I would get a cold response back. I couldn't even make excuses, and before I knew it, the rift between me and Sharon had deepened. After that, even the things she used to do for me without me asking, Sharon wouldn't do unless I asked. Before I knew it, it became hard to rely on Sharon too, and I truly lost any allies. Gradually, it became difficult to go to the living room, and I started spending as much time as possible without leaving my room. As always, on weekends I was left at home. Sharon and my parents would go out to eat and shop without me. We bought so much again today. Everyone will be surprised when I post these clothes on social media, my mom would say, showing off clothes that were clearly expensive. The food was delicious today. Where should we go next week? My dad would come back happily. It seemed like my parents were deliberately flaunting their happiness in front of me. But Sharon was the only one who was different. Sharon, you should buy something too. I don't need anything, Sharon would say, and she never let them buy her anything. She probably thought it would be wrong to let them buy things just for her when I was there. Even though there was distance between us, it seemed like Sharon was still thoughtful of me. Both Sharon and I should have had a proper conversation, but we were both too afraid to hear the truth and couldn't properly talk things out. And so, time passed without my relationship with Sharon being repaired. I became 17 and Sharon was 18. By this age, I could manage to some extent on my own, and I could live without much help or assistance. At this time, I was going to school while also visiting Grandpa's company and helping out with work. Sharon will be going to college next year. She's apparently going to a university in Los Angeles, which is quite far from Atlanta where we live. One day, my parents called out to me for the first time in a while. Rothy, we need to talk. Seeing the serious looks on my parents' faces, I had a bad feeling. Sharon had gone to her part-time job that day and wasn't home. My job transfer has been decided. We're moving. What? Really? From when? Do I have to transfer schools? Surprised by the sudden news, I bombarded my dad with questions. I had finally made some friends and was about to graduate, and now I have to transfer. I felt a little uneasy. Then my mom burst out laughing. Rothy, you seem to be misunderstanding, but you're not coming with us. It's just me, your dad, and Sharon going. What? What do you mean? Sharon is going to college in Los Angeles next year, right? Your dad's transfer is to Los Angeles too. That's why only we are going. We're selling this house too. What? Then where am I supposed to live? Live with your grandparents. We already told them. Then you won't have to transfer schools either, right? But. No buts. My dad suddenly shouted angrily. How long do you intend to be a burden on us? We only need Sharon who isn't troublesome and has all her limbs. It's embarrassing to be with you. That's right. We don't need a monster who isn't normal in this house. I was speechless at the terrible words that I couldn't believe were coming from my real parents. So this is how they've thought of me all this time. I thought they probably didn't like me either, but actually being told that to my face felt like having a knife stabbed into my heart. A few months later. Well then, Dad, Mom. Please take care of Rothy from now on. See ya, Rothy. Even though we probably won't have many chances to meet from now on, my parents left me with my grandparents as casually as if they were going on a 3-day trip. Sharon kept glancing at me looking concerned, but she didn't say anything. I waved with a smile as always. But as soon as the three of them were out of sight, tears spilled out.
What's wrong, Rothy?
Grandpa was surprised and flustered to see his usually smiling granddaughter suddenly burst into tears.
Did you not want to be separated from your parents?
No. I didn't want to be separated from Sharon, but I did want to be separated from Mom and Dad. When I said that, my grandparents looked at each other in surprise. They seemed to understand the situation. What did they say to you? That they don't need a monster.
How could they say something so horrible?
I can't believe it. That's too cruel. The two were shocked and saddened. Talking about my parents for the first time in my life, I continued crying loudly as if a string of tension had snapped. Seeing me like that, Grandpa stood up as if he had made a decision. Rothy, it's okay. You don't have to worry about a thing. It's them who will regret it. Huh? It took 8 long years for me to understand these words from Grandpa. 8 years after I was abandoned by my parents. I, who started living with my grandparents, turned 26 this year. Grandpa has already reached retirement age and retired, but he still supports the company as an honorary chairman. I started working at Grandpa's company right after graduating high school. Sharon graduated from vocational school and started living on her own, working as a beautician. Living in my grandparents' house, I was able to live freely without being discriminated against by my parents. However, as if to shatter that peaceful life, a storm suddenly arrived. Long time no see. It's been 8 years. Rothy, you've grown. Hearing those familiar, unpleasant voices, goosebumps rose all over my body. Those voices belonged to the parents who abandoned me. My parents had been receiving financial assistance from my grandparents ever since I was living with them. It was because Grandpa ran a company and had some financial leeway. My grandparents continued to provide assistance without refusing, thinking it was for their grandchild. Certainly, looking back now, it's strange that my parents, who were just ordinary salary workers, were able to live so luxuriously. Apparently, they were using all the money Grandpa gave them for the sake of his grandchild. However, they seem to have stopped that assistance when Sharon graduated from vocational school. For a while, they apparently called my grandparents and demanded money, but my grandparents completely blocked my parents and didn't return their calls. Unable to get money anymore, but having lived a luxurious life until then, my parents couldn't easily lower their standard of living and were somehow getting by taking out loans. That's when my parents found out about me on TV. Actually, at the young age of 26, I had become the president of a company. Although I say president, there are still only a few employees. It's a small company, but based on the experience I gained at Grandpa's company, I went independent and established my own company. Perhaps because I achieved success at a young age, I've started being featured on TV and YouTube. And my parents also found out from TV that I had become a company president, and they came all the way here convinced that if they asked me for a favor, they might be able to get money again and regain the life they had when receiving assistance from my grandparents. Rothy, I heard you became a company president. Sitting in such a grand office in that president's chair, how cheeky of you. Even though it was the first time seeing them in 8 years, they barged into the president's office as they pleased and then had the gall to say something so terrible. Sigh. What do you want? I asked with a sigh. We're in trouble because we don't have money. You're the president, right? Give us some cash. Huh? After Dad and Mom stopped supporting us, we were using our savings, but now our savings have run out too. Come on, please. Just give us a little share. I was thoroughly disappointed how no matter how many years pass, these people don't change. I don't have any money to give you. I rejected them.
What? We raised you all this time, so can't you at least give us a little money? That's right. We took care of a troublesome person like you for years, and this is how you repay us. You ungrateful child.
Raised me? You abandoned raising me, your disabled child, partway through. If it was me back when I was still a student, I probably would have been scared of my parents and given them the money as they demanded by now. But now I'm different from who I was back then.
How dare you say that? Didn't you treat me terribly over and over? I have nothing to say to you, so could you leave? Huh? Stop being so bratty. This is an order. Hand over the money.
My parents tried to intimidate me with crude language, but I wouldn't submit.
If you keep being persistent, I'm calling the police. From now on, don't ever involve yourselves with me or my grandparents again.
The word police is scary no matter how old you are. Humph. Well, whatever. We'll just ask Sharon. We were stupid for relying on a monster like you. Saying that, my parents left the president's office noisily. A certain person stopped those parents.
Dad, Mom. What are you going to ask me? Sharon?
My parents were surprised to see Sharon's face, who shouldn't have been there.
After Grandpa and Grandma, you're going to ask Rothy for money, and then me next. I don't have any money to give to toxic parents like you. Toxic parents?
They probably never thought they'd hear such words from Sharon. My parents visibly turned pale. 8 years ago when we parted with Rothy, I heard everything. To think that you were doing such horrible things. I was shocked when I first found out, but I was happy to know that Rothy never badmouthed me.
Rothy definitely badmouthed you. Right, dear? Yeah, Rothy was always talking badly about you.
Both of them were flustered but still didn't stop lying. But Sharon wouldn't believe her parents' words anymore.
You're still lying.
You're the worst.
Well, whatever. When I graduated from vocational school, I was jumping for joy when I realized I wouldn't have to live with you anymore.
Actually, on the day I parted with my parents and Sharon, I told my grandparents about the rift that had formed with Sharon, and my grandparents explained the situation to her. Thanks to that, the rift between me and Sharon completely disappeared, and we went back to being close sisters like before. I suggested to Sharon that she work at my company, but Sharon chose the path of a beautician, which had been her dream since she was little. But she occasionally visits my company. Today too, Sharon had come to my company after work. Then, when my parents barged in yelling, I had Sharon leave the room after talking with her so we could surprise our parents.
No way! Why are you two together?
Rothy and I are still close.
I don't ever want to be involved with parents who call my precious little sister a monster. Me neither. I don't want to be involved with you ever again. How could you?
As my parents were reluctant to leave the president's office, my grandparents came next.
Can't you see your grandchildren don't want you here? Get out now. And we won't ever be involved with you two again either. Got it?
They shouted angrily. In the end, my parents were driven out and cut off from both my grandparents and me and Sharon. I don't know where they are or what they're doing now, but apparently they were already in debt when they barged into my company, so there's no doubt they're being forced to live quite a hard life. I asked my grandfather, "Hey Grandpa, how did you know 8 years ago that Mom and Dad would regret everything?"
Rothy, you were always coming to my company since you were a student, right? From that time, I thought you were smart, quick to understand, and resourceful. I thought this girl would definitely grow up to be an adult who leads people,
he said. I was happy to know that Grandpa had been watching over me all along. Thank you.
It's all the result of your hard work, Rothy. You really did well.
At those words, my eyes welled up again. A few days later, I went to Sharon's salon. I feel refreshed from everything, so maybe I'll get a shortcut.
It's rare for you to get a shortcut, Rothy. Do you want the usual beige tones for your hair color?
Yeah, that works. Sharon, make me cute.
Yes, I got it.
Saying that, Sharon starts cutting my hair. I always thought Sharon should become a beautician since we were little, and even now that we're adults, she still makes my hair cute. Sharon is really a wonderful person.
Done. Look, you're so cute now.
Seeing Sharon with a proud look on her face like back then, I laugh with her.
Thanks, Sharon.
From now on, Sharon and I will always be close sisters.